This is Refuge, written by Luc Parry. Exterior beach day. The Salat al-Janaza funeral prayer is heard from a male voice. Gentle waves dissipate on the shore, the surf creeping further up the beach. An old white hand places a rock just after the incoming tide. Exterior ferry port Calais day. The Salat al-Janaza continues. A line of vehicles crawls towards the entrance to the ferry hold. Armed border guards stalk the line of vehicles, checking underneath lorries and vans. Interior motorhome day. Rose, a 70-year-old white woman with a lilac rinse, is sat in the driver's seat of a motorhome. On the passenger seat is a silver urn with the lid taped shut. The motorhome is around 20 years old, the once white interior yellowed with memories. Stuck to every wall and pillar are pictures of Rose and her husband in front of the wonders of the world. As well as these are pictures of her daughter Eva, a woman of around 40, with Ellie, a mixed-race child, in her arms. Rose is talking to Eva on her flip phone.
Taking bloody ages, this.
Interior suburban house, open plan kitchen, same time. Eva, dressed in a way she would describe as trendy, is stirring a pot in the stove, her phone on speaker next to her. Ellie, her 14-year-old daughter, is sat in the sofa in earshot. Intercut phone conversation. Rose scans around the port, noting the border guards making their checks.
It's all these bloody migrants, love. They're searching vehicles.
Eva rolls her eyes. Rose looks over to the right and notes a huge line of lorries inching forward.
And there's lorries backed up a mile.
Eva scoffs.
Well, I didn't vote for this.
You what, love?
Eva smiles smugly.
Nothing, Mum. I'm just saying it's all these new forms.
Nonsense. I'll tell you what it is.
So how did it go? Did you decide on a spot?
Rose turns to the passenger seat and reaches her hand towards the unopened urn.
No. Couldn't lay a towel down on that beach, let alone lay a man to rest.
Eva frowns, concerned.
I really do think it'll do you some good.
Honestly, love, you couldn't move for them. I mean, it's not like they need a tan.
Ellie rolls her eyes.
Mum.
Don't even swim, half of them.
You don't swim, Mum.
Well, no, not since my hip, but honestly, love.
Maybe somewhere nearer to home then, Mum. I can help you.
Rose starts to well up but shakes it off.
Yes, well, anyway, is Ellie there, love? I could pick her up a magazine. Does she still like Peppa the Pig?
Eve looks over at Ellie, who is sat in the sofa scrolling through her phone.
No, I think she's a bit past Peppa Pig now.
Rose's smile fails. She sinks back into her seat slightly.
Well, what does she like these days then? Can I say hello?
Ellie shakes her head. Eva gestures to the phone, encouraging her to take it. Ellie stands up and walks out of the room.
Oh, she's busy at the minute. Sorry, Mum. Listen, don't worry about it. Just give me a ring when you dock, yeah?
Eva hangs up the phone. Rose folds down the phone and pops it into the fanny pack around her waist. She takes another look at the urn beside her before crawling another few inches forward. Exterior ferryport Calais, day, afternoon. Rose reaches the front of the line in her motorhome. She pulls up to a kiosk and unrolls the window.
Bonjour. Avez votre passeport, s'il vous plaît?
Rose scrunches up her face.
You what?
The guard rolls his eyes.
Your passport, please, madame.
Rose reaches into her fanny pack and pulls out her passport, handing it over to the guard. He looks from it to her and hands it back.
Merci, Rose.
Rose mutters to herself as she drives into the hold. Interior motorhome, day, afternoon. Rose parks the motorhome up in the hold. Workers are strapping vehicles down as border guards hurry people out of their cars, continuing their searches. Rose shivers slightly and walks to the back of her motorhome. She reaches forward and lifts the seat. She sees Dozan, a 30-year-old Kurdish man, huddled inside the bunk storage. Rose gasps and startles back, tripping and starting to fall. She bangs and cuts her head on the corner of the work surface and passes out. Exterior beach day. The Salat al-Janaza is heard. The surf tickles the first rock. A dark hand places more around it in a tight circle. Interior motorhome, night, evening. Rose awakens in a daze, snapping to when she sees Dozan and scrambles away from him. Her head is wrapped in a well-applied bandage. She tries to stand, but the blood rushes to her head, and she rocks, dizzied, falling back into her seat. She goes to shout for the guards, but her voice fails her. Dozin reaches forward to her, urging her not to. In doing so, he reveals Alal, his 6-year-old daughter, beside him. Rose sees this and stops. Alal smiles at her from behind the Peppa Pig backpack she holds in front of her chest. Rose can't help but give a disconcerted smile. Rose grimaces and lifts her hand to her head, feeling the neatly dressed wound her eyebrows furrow. She spots her first aid kit sat on the floor next to Dozin, looking at him and looks at him questioningly. Dozin nods.
Who taught you to do that?
I'm a combat medic.
Doran is speaking quietly, looking down.
Or I was.
So you're a soldier then?
Dozin raises his head with this, chest coming forward.
Doctor.
Rose keeps looking to Alal.
What are you doing here then? Nobody to heal back home, is it?
Dozin's eyes fall once more, glazed over.
Too many. It's not safe.
Dozin's eyes well with tears, but he shakes it off.
Well, we're full. There's too many of you as it is. My Graham can attest to that.
Dozin returns his gaze to Rose, an apologetic smile.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you should be.
I'm trying to get my family to safety.
Well, why can't you just hop in a dinghy like the rest of them?
Dozin's eyes flare wildly. He grasps the gold ring on a small chain around his neck and whispers venomously.
I did not come this far to see my daughter fall to the bottom of the sea.
Rose starts back, shocked at the outburst. She looks again to Alal and gulps. Dozin sinks back into himself. He gazes at the ring in his palm.
My wife died in my arms because I could not save her. I will not let the same happen to my daughter.
Rose looks to the pictures of her family on the walls of her motorhome. She scans over a photo of Ellie when she was 8. Her gaze then falls to a photo of her husband smiling, the Taj Mahal rising in the background. Her face shifts. She snaps into herself and looks fiercely at Dozin.
No, you can't do this.
She stands up again too quickly, but steadies herself a moment before shuffling to the door. Dozin does nothing to stop her. He takes Alal's hand and squeezes. Interior ferry hold night, evening. Rose steps down out of the motorhome. She spots a guard on the far side of the hold and starts towards him. The guard spots her and shouts.
Halt!
Rose carries on towards him. Other guards who heard the shout come swarming from their patrols and surround her, raising their guns.
Halt! Arrête!
Rose stops, confusion engulfing her. She starts to cry. The first guard approaches her, recognizing she's an old lady. He gestures for others to lower their weapons.
Madame?
I'm sorry, sir.
The guard's manner shifts entirely. He notices her bandage and puts his arm on her shoulder gently.
Madame, I am so sorry. We are on high alert. Reports of migrants smuggled into vehicles in Calais.
Rose is in shock. She tries to speak to him, but the words don't arrive. She grimaces again and feels her head.
Your head, madam. Is everything okay? Let me escort you to the lobby.
She shakes her head and brushes his arm off before reaching into her fanny pack for tissues. She blows her nose, dabs her tears and walks off, struggling up the stairs and into the hold. Interior ferry lobby night. Rose rocks slightly, her head still throbbing, but steadies herself and enters the main lobby of the boat. She walks to the large seating area and takes a seat. The chair is lower than expected and she stumbles slightly. She holds her hands to her temples. Looking around, she notices a man and his young daughter huddled under a blanket watching a video together on his phone and laughing. Across from her, she sees an old couple arguing. Rose sighs, gets up and walks away from them towards the shop. Interior onboard shop night. Rose scans the magazine. She picks up Good Housekeeping and leafs through before returning it to the shelf. She looks to the bottom shelf, seeing children's magazines bursting with colourful images, plastic taped to the front. She sighs and moves off towards the sandwiches. Rose assesses the options. She picks up a falafel wrap and turns her nose up at it, placing it back on the shelf. She grabs the cheese and pickle sandwich. In exterior ferry deck night, the rain lashes down on the deck, winds clattering the glass door. Rose walks out onto the deck of the ferry, grasping the railing with one hand, cheese and pickle sandwich in the other, as she looks overboard, braced against the wind. The sea is vicious, waves crashing on the sidings. She clings to the railing and shuffles cautiously back inside. Interior ferry lobby night. Rose hugs herself, rubbing her arms. Her eyebrows furrow. She grimaces and raises her hand to her head and dabs a moment. Her hand drops to cover her mouth as a concerned look spreads across her face. Rose takes out her phone and dials. Interior suburban house dining room, same time. Eva is sat at the dining table eating tea with Ellie. She's taken back by her phone ringing.
It's Grandma. Best take this.
Ellie rolls her eyes. Eva answers, putting her phone to a speaker, leaving it on the table.
Hiya, Mum.
Sorry, carry on.
Hiya, Mum. That was quick.
Rose's eyebrows furrow.
You what? Oh, right. No, I've not docked yet. I need to ask you.
Oh, well, we're just eating at the minute, Mum. Can I ring you back? It'll cost you a fortune, especially now we've left.
Have you heard anything about any boat crossings?
Ellie pushes herself away from the table and storms out of the room, glaring at Eva. Eva sighs deeply.
Mum.
I'm worried about...
Mum?
It's scary.
Oh, for God's sake, Mum!
Rose is startled into silence. Eva sits with her head in her hands, bringing the phone to her ear.
You can't keep on like this. Your own granddaughter can't bear listening to it, and you wonder why she won't speak to you.
No, love, I just need to know.
You don't need to know anything, Mum. You never even need to think about it.
But...
I know it was tough with Dad, but we can't keep going over this. You can't keep blaming everyone for what happened.
I think we're...
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Angela, we are recording, aren't we?
We are recording.
Ah, that's right. So I didn't remember seeing the thing pop up at the beginning.
Yes, we are recording. As I was reading that, I was just a bit concerned about the time of day, I noticed. We go from day to afternoon to night to evening. Isn't the Calais-Dover crossing only an hour long?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ooh.
Suppose it depends how long she was waiting for.
Yeah, it could be queuing for hours.
Yeah, you could be queuing for hours. That was just the thing that I suddenly thought, hang on, we're at night now? I've done that crossing a few times on a motorcycle. And yeah, that was the main thing that jumped out at me. And the other thing that jumps out at me is, I'm only going to say these couple of things and I'll leave it open to you guys, is that I think there's too much detail. There's too much information. It's that the action sequences are, I mean, it's sort of like a novel. It's prose rather than like a script, mostly. And we don't need to know whether she's raising her eyebrows or scratching her leg or whatever she's doing, because your actors will
leave that to actors.
Yeah. So,
Director,
John, who wasn't saying anything? Rory wasn't saying anything.
I wasn't saying anything. Yeah, I thought to start off with, oh no, here we go again. But I think actually it's a lot better than I feared. And I think it's going to raise some interesting questions. And I can see it being done as an indie sort of mid-budget film, and doing quite well. That it sort of gets someone good in as Rose, and it's going to carry. I think it'll bring up interesting questions. I think it needs to be very careful to stay away from cliches. But I think it's got some really interesting potential there.
Okay,
and presents presents the argument from a different angle.
Thanks, Stewart.
I agree with Rory. Actually, I think there's got a lot of potential. It's quite topical, and shows it from a different angle. I like the fact that Rose is an older character, as kind of leading the story. That's a really nice angle for a change. Question, would it be made? Because there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment on social media about, well, yeah, we can write for older characters, but will it actually get made? So that's a separate
Maggie
conversation.
Smith will do it.
Yeah, Maggie Smith, Julie Walters.
Why would
if you could have a handful, yeah. But I really liked the relationship that was going on with Eva, actually, across the phone conversation, and that kind of tension between mother and daughter, and little bits of backstory sort of being seeded in. That was quite interesting for me, which I liked, and I wanted to see more of that and kind of where that was off to. The only thing I did wonder about this was this could possibly be quite expensive to film, because you've got to basically book out a ferry and have all this activity going on with guards and lorries driving on, and you could cheat it with some stock shots and things, I'm sure, but it looks kind of, oh my god, this is logistically and cost wise, this could be quite expensive to shoot.
This beginning will be the most expensive part of the film.
Yeah. That's just me thinking practically.
You could get away with a soundstage just mocked up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But no, in summary, I like the story, I like the different angle, and I think it's definitely got potential, and it would be interesting to see if this gets picked up.
Ooh.
So,
Rachel.
Yeah, agree. Also think it's got potential. Liked it as an actor. It felt easy to follow, which is nice. I thought it was quite a clear opening scene. We know things about Rosa's life instantly, which is useful to the audience and the actor, I suppose. What was I going to say? I thought the hand references were quite intriguing as well. I'd like to see where they go, how many times they come up. I don't know. I guess we would grow to expect them as an audience as well. Yeah, I think I just agree with everyone else, really. It's good. I liked it. Thank you.
Emma.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely echo anything for female actors being leads, and also older female actors. Thank you. Very, very good. I thought, first of all, I was sort of like, oh no, an old Brexity woman, oh dear, and I think it was a bit like you, but actually I think there's something really brilliant about cantankerous old women, and they're often being lovely grannies and things, and it's quite nice that she's allowed to be sort of churlish, I think, and I'm guessing that there's going to be a sort of softening of attitude, a changing of mind as she begins to I guess because she's not actually dobbed Dozan in, has she? So I'm guessing she keeps him on board, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that might play out. Yeah, there's some intrigue there, isn't there? She's obviously trying to get her husband's ashes somewhere in Calais on the beach, but we don't know why. We know that something happened to him to do with at the hospital there weren't enough people to look after him or something. There's some little mysteries. The hand thing, indeed, like Rachel said, I picked up on that because it was like this pale hand, and then suddenly I think it's scene 8 on page 5, there's a dark hand, and you just think, what is it? What's going on? What is this stone that they're picking up? Yeah, I just think people aren't normally now so doddery when they're 70. I think, of everybody I know in their 70s, they're pretty, some of them might have vile views, but they are, fairly active, and, she's a bit weedy.
Yeah. Rory's doing all right.
4 years older.
But she's quite brave, isn't she? She's going off on her motorhome on her own, and that's quite fun. And also they're very well travelled. But I did, I did wonder why she stayed out of her motorhome so long. Is she afraid of Dozan, even though she isn't going to dob him in? Why is she sort of, unless the bang on her head has made her go a bit skew-whiff? She's hanging around on the ferry looking at people a long time.
This is the thought process time of her then, because she's going to buy Peppa Pig magazine and take it back.
Child, yeah, so I just and he has a ring on a small chain, but it's in his hand. Just one of those tiny logistical things that you think, how is it sort of really close to his head, or is a small chain a fine chain and actually very long, so he can have it in his hand, or does it break? I don't know, but just a tiny thing. And I've got a little note that I can't even understand. So terrible handwriting. We'll never know. But no, I was interested, and would like to see how it plays out.
Oh, I thought a couple of things while you were talking. Widows and orphans. Widows and orphans. There's widows and orphans.
Yes.
Every page. You can't do that. Like at the bottom of page 1, Rose scans the port, noting the border guards making, on page 2, their checks. That can't happen. I'm sorry. You've got to do a continued and a continued, or take their checks up into the previous page, or take that scene down into the next page. I think this is the result of using Celts, because Celts is not a favourite of mine for formatting correctly. It has some little dodgy bits in it at times. There was something else, but I can't remember what it was. It'll come to me. John?
I didn't think we put scene numbers in scripts until they were actually finalised.
It's a debatable. Some people like to put them because it's easier then to refer back to a scene if you need to do edits. But in general, rule of thumb is that you don't include scene numbers until you've got money attached.
Yeah.
You go into proper production, at which point you need scene numbers.
Well, that's my first pickup.
Yeah.
My second pickup is fanny pack is an Americanism.
True.
And I'll be honest with you, I detest it personally. But no, the story is wonderful. I must admit, I cheated and I read it all, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I can see where it's going. And yes, I do think that there's a damn good chance that it could be picked up. But it does, the downside is it does run quite close to the politics of today. Now, obviously it's meant to, but, all this Brexit stuff.
Yeah. It's a difficult
one. It could make it difficult. That's all I'm saying. It could make it difficult to get funded.
The BBC won't fund it, will they? They're not allowed to
fund it. Because it hasn't got anybody buying lewd images of young men.
Cool.
Ooh.
Okay.
I didn't mention any names. I just said the BBC. And seems as they've recently turned me down for a job I went for. I'm anti-BBC at the moment.
Sorry, I opened a whole huge can of worms.
So the thing that came to mind was the guards. The guards, the guards are armed. Literally until last year, there were no armed guards on British ferries crossing from Calais.
Well, these appear to be French guards.
Well, they wouldn't be allowed to travel.
No, they wouldn't. Well, they wouldn't be on the ferry.
No, they wouldn't be on. However, I've just double checked. There are armed counter-terrorism officers deployed now on cross-channel ferries.
But these guards are French.
But these are French, and that wouldn't happen.
And there are no French ferries operating Dover to Calais.
No,
they're all British ferries.
Various British companies.
In case you weren't aware of that, chaps, they're all British ferries.
So that's just something to be aware of. There are armed guards, but they're counter-terrorism people. So and they're British. So it's just weird little things like that. But that's an easy to resolve, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Okay, fab. Everybody. Okay, have we done everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.